evening to our listeners and viewers of the Real Stuff podcast. Today is Wednesday, and on Wednesday, we usually have a special guest. And our special guest today is Carlston Medford out of the UK. And he's a mental health therapist. And, we're here to talk about mental health, especially about personality disorders. So, Mr. Medford, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great. I'm great. How you all doing?
Great.
Wonderful,
And yeah,
wonderful.
Yeah,
and we are
great.
here with Flavius, our host, and yours truly, your
Yeah.
co-host. So, Mr. Medford, would you just like to just reintroduce yourself a little bit to our listeners and viewers?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Carlston Medford. For those that have heard me on this program before, I normally talk about mental health. I not only talk about mental health as it pertains to the experience or the description, but also I like to mention things that people can also do to improve their own mental health. And my background or my interest for this area is because I grew up in an environment where I grew up in a house with an uncle who was schizophrenic. My father also had um, lapses of mental illness. I have sisters, I have cousins, I have yeah, wherever I turn, um, there's always someone in my family that is struggling with their own mental health. And just to end that as well, me myself, I've had a few occasions where also struggle um, to a point where, and I think I mentioned it before, I even came close to even considering or even attempting suicide. So when I talk about mental health, it's from a passionate place, it's from a place that I experience myself, it's from understanding and why I behave the way or why I experience what I experience. And also I because of my years working on myself, understanding how to get myself from point A to point B. In other words, to get myself from where my mental health is say very low to where I can boast and say to anyone that I'm in a good place. I have always been in a good place for a long time based on the principles I have learned. So that kind of summarizes me, yeah, in a mouthful.
Yeah, so Carson, we look into mental health issues and we see that there are many different personality disorders,
Yeah.
quite a few. And but one of the prominent ones that I have been like researching or reading about is borderline personality disorder. So would you like to lead us off into talking about it?
Yes. Well, I'll say this at the beginning. I have never had to work with anyone with what we call dissociative identity disorder, which is what we call multiple personality disorder. However, we phrase it, uh, basically is a person detaching themselves from one reality and creating a personality for them to survive. In the term dissociative identity, it means detached from.
Yeah.
So in people with multiple personality disorders or dissociative or whatever term you use, from my research, and like I said, I just want to go over that. That is what I've researched and not actually worked with, because I don't want anyone to think that what I say is coming from my own experience or working with someone. So I had to research this topic and I had to relate it, or my way of approaching anything is to how do I break it down in a term that people can understand as well as connected with what I already know. And by doing that, I realized that in NLP we talk about ego states and we talk about dissociative behavior, and it's quite similar. Basically, it is looking at yourself from the outside. The difference is each human being, even yourself, Courtney, I'm sure Flavius, many times you all have be happy, having a good time with your friends and family, and somebody said something and it just triggered a different behavior. You probably get upset within seconds, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, correct. But when you upset and you get when you feel angry or upset, you're still connected to yourself. So you are aware that your mood has changed, your state has changed, right? So in other words, you can change state but still be associated with it. You are still connected to it. Well, people with dissociative behavior, they can switch state and not know that they're actually doing that. It is like as though you switch from one program to a separate program, being a separate behavior or being a separate person altogether. You, are you with me?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So put it this way. Imagine all right, when you look in the mirror, if you look at yourself, there's a happy version of yourself. There's a sad version of yourself. There can be an angry version of yourself. There can be a surprised version of yourself. Um, and there can even be a very chill or mellow version of yourself. Correct?
Yes, okay, yes.
But all of them are still you. You're still when you're sad, when you're in a happy mood, you are aware that you're happy. When you're sad, you are aware that you're sad. When you are angry, you're aware you're angry. In each separate state you're in, you are consciously aware that that's where you are at this particular time. All of your emotions, when you're behaving, you're acting in a we would call it a state. You're being in a state, a particular state. Now, person with dissociative behavior can also be in those separate states, but rather than being aware that they are, they're unaware. So as that each one is literally an individual program, not connected to each other. Now, if a person goes to a doctor and be diagnosed, one of the criteria, like four different criteria. One of the criteria is that there have to be at least two states where our personality traits that are unaware, are not directly connected. In some cases, you would find that there's a main personality, who you are, and the second or third personalities may be aware of the first one, but in reverse, the first one may not be aware of the second and third. Some of the things or some of the ideas that have explained this behavior is when our brain sometimes can have is like a fail-safe mechanism, especially people going through very severe trauma, and that could be not just mostly emotional trauma, so something like abuse, maybe be sexual abuse, physical abuse. It all seems that our brain try to protect us, and it creates a personality, or it creates a state of mind that allows you to be more resilient in dealing with certain situations within your life. Now, relating it, I'm talking to you, I'm trying to see how can I explain that point. Imagine imagine being a child. Imagine being physically well, I know all of us come up where we know what licks is like. But imagine licks so severe that the only way you can survive it is for your brain to switch off who you are and create a different personality in order to deal with that. Are you with me?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So some people, we as kids, we imagine, I imagine myself to be as tough as a pirate, so that anything happened to me, I can deal with it, right? No, I am aware that I am doing that, and I'm decide, what, I can pretend I am this person so that I can manage what happened with me. But when the event is over, I know I'm still myself. Well, with people with dissociative identity disorder, it is you can switch to different personalities so that you can cope with what trauma you're going through. It can be done in such a way, it could be so traumatic that your brain can separate rather than connecting it to. It may be your unconsciousness keep it separate, but it may
Mm.
your unconsciousness may deem that that is too traumatic for your actual self to comprehend.
I
In
want to
in in,
ask you
in
though,
Yes.
when the brain separates, is it possible to move from phase A or person A to person B and don't come back?
It can be possible. The only reason I say it's possible because, and like I said, this is not my field of expertise.
Yeah.
It can be possible. It's possible that you can get so comfortable that one become more dominant. So eventually, the personality that you take over, that you more or less created to survive, can take precedence over the next one if it deems it to be a lesser personality. If it deems it to be, um, it's all about survival. And if you developing a second personality that is allow you to be more strong, to be stronger and more resilient, and that it means that being in that second personality means that you are in more control of your life. It is a possibility that that can take dominance.
Can that be? Can that be forced by you? I'm thinking about all those people who do undercover work and have to assume different
That is
identities.
that is totally different. That is a conscious choice.
Yeah,
That isn't forced by trauma. That is you making a decision, or you willingly know that you are going to pretend to be a different personality, a different character. In some cases, some people can probably uh, there can be a blur line between what is reality compared to what you create. Because remember, all reality is what we create. I'm not trying to get philosophical with you, but all reality is what we actually create. Let me
yeah,
explain what I mean by that. When I look at an event and you look at the same event, I am sure that we will record, or when we talk about it, we will talk about it, and there will be differences in what we say, or what we saw, what we observed. Things I will see, you may not even see. You may even talk about something that I didn't see, and we're talking about the same event that we both observed, right? So reality is my perception of the world around me, the information I take, and I'm taking it through my senses, through my sight, through my smell, through my taste, through my touch, through my hearing. We're using our senses to gather information, and that is what create our reality. Now, a person may create such depend on the reality they create, or depend on the personality they create for their job, it may come where that personality is even better than their actual life, and decide, you know what, I'm going to actually live this life that I created for myself, because we all create a life for ourselves, whether we like the outcome or not. So undercover work is, and this is something I can touch upon a little, only because, as I said, one of my past jobs used to be a police officer, and I do have some friends that work in detective work, and I understand some of the principles as well. If your actual life is misery, and you deem it to be unhappy, and you get to pretend to be someone which have the things in their life that you prefer to have in your life, on one hand, it is easy to pretend and enjoy that. On the other hand, it can be difficult to go back to how you think, how you perceive your actual life to be,
yeah.
right? So given a person the option, which life would you prefer? The one that you pretend to be and enjoy, or the one that you actually see yourself to be part of and not enjoy?
The Courtney wanted to come in.
Yeah, well, just it's just something that I've observed.
Yeah,
That by what you're saying is that we all possess this ability to have these multiple personalities as
yeah. We all
humans.
listen. Every person, this is my personal opinion. Every human being have different personalities. In other words, when I'm angry, I'm a different person than when I'm happy. That's a different personality trait. The difference is with people with dissociative identity disorder is that they don't know how they rather than integrating all of these parts together, it's just separate. For most, it's not because of trauma. Trauma in the brain, or the perception, um, can be too can be too hurtful. It can also be the person got a physical injury to the brain. It could be, and literally an injury to the brain can also cause that. Some people get amnesia.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then by trying to piece together a life to create a new personality, who they see themselves to be, and then some a kind of trauma may bridge you too sometimes, and then they get a flashback of who they were before. Um, this is a field that there's no particular one description. We have general terms as to behavior, as to loss. Person might tell you, you know what? I find recently I've lost memory over the last few days because as one personality switches, and it's because it's not connected. When you're in one personality, whatever you do or whatever you say may stick with that personality. In fact, in some cases, there is known that not known, I could say that, but and you can search if you go. I think there's a web. I can't remember if there's not examine.com. There's a medical journal. If you go and Google it, medical journals or medical papers explaining um, DID or dissociative identity disorder, you'll come across cases where people that have different personalities also have physical traits to match. So one personality you may be okay and healthy, the second personality you may be diabetic. And as your brain changes, your physiology changes, your chemical builder also changes to match that personality.
Wow.
There are actually study cases that shows this people with disorders, multiple personality disorders, can also have change in physical in traits. In other words, you at one personality may walk a certain way. When your personality change, your what we call your gait as your body moves, that can also change as well. So it's
Mm.
like having two or three programs of human beings living in the same body.
Wow.
Well, quick question though. So how
Yes.
do you deal with someone like that in in a relationship then, personal relationship?
Sometimes people don't even know. You just say this person is very moody. This person keep changing behavior all the time. And to my knowledge, I'm not sure if there's any medical intervention, like any kind of medication. I know in cases of people who use say NLP techniques, some people use hypnosis to try to bridge or work on personalities. And there's a some people in NLP there's a technique named parts integration where you try to integrate one being or one line of thinking with the next line of thinking. And I know in cases part of the way to try this with personalities, try to integrate these personalities into the same person. So you are then aware of everything. Is it then making is like turning the bulb on in a dark room so you can see all parts of yourself.
Mm.
Uh, to my knowledge, there are cases where people use hypnosis and NLP techniques to help people to integrate these parts of themselves. But I have never had come across it myself personally, or even attempt to do that. So it would be very interesting for me to work with someone like that to see. I'm all about seeing if we can get results.
Yeah, because I've been looking into it a little bit too, and they're saying there's no cure. The person only can manage this kind of situation.
Yeah. What what some people have attempted to do is to keep journals and leave a note. And this was funny. I leave a note on the mirror. Whoever you are, write a journal of how your day is going. The idea, the idea is to get whichever state you're in to read the note and make a journal, and then be able to see the journals and compare them. And then if you realize that you're writing three different or four different journals, to realize, oh, this is me in this state, this is me in this state, and then try to make you aware of what you're doing, and see if the awareness can get you to bring them together. Um, but yeah, this is one of those areas that I am not speaking out of experience, but more of um, ideas. How based on what I know, how would I approach that? How would I even attempt to get that person to be aware? And I think it's really down to trying to get a person to not only be aware, but to reconnect. Because I believe if the consciousness of each personality is based within your mind, they got to be able to bridge them. They can be bridged together. Now, I remember earlier you was it Tavis? Did you mention about our brain? right? I keep a very distinction between brain and mind, and this is how I put it. Your brain is like the hard drive of a computer. Your mind are the programs that you run within that hard drive.
Okay.
Yes, you
Okay.
understand?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the brain is so the brain is a physical matter within our skull. That's the brain. But the mind is the programs that we run. So
Yeah.
you don't ever hear them, but they say, "Oh, you know what? I just changed my brain." No, people say, "I changed my mind." In
Yeah.
other words, I just changed a line of thought, and each thought is basically a program that you're running. So you can change your mind, which means you change that program to from one to the other. But we don't really change our brains.
So if you have two personalities, would you have two separate memories stored?
You probably could. In fact, and this is an assumption. So anyone listen to this and listen to it in the future, don't quote that I said it to be a fact, but this is just my assumption. You can have two separate memories, or you might even have the secondary personality aware of the primary personality. It is like having your unconsciousness observe your behavior and decide, you know what, this is too traumatic for you to do it. I'm going to step ahead. I'm going to step in. But there has to be there's normally a trigger where your second personality or third or fourth or how many you have steps in front of the first one, which means, or my assumption is, it means that the second personality has to be observing
Okay. Yeah.
what has happened in order to step ahead, or else what we'll consider, or more or less, is like having a switch. The switch is observing the side. It's time for me to step forward. Uh, I can only assume. Imagine having a conversation. How many times you've had conversations with yourself in your head? You've had a voice talking to you, and imagine you got
Every
two
day.
different voices. Correct. You're right. Well, imagine that that second voice is a personality that has been created for your personal defense, for your to protect you. And when things get too much for you to bear, it's decide, okay, it's time for me to step in because I am going to deal with this now and let you relax. Right? It means that your second personalities have to be observing what you're doing in order to know when to step in. You may not even know that that they're stepping in or that they're present. All you know is that there's a space of time or a space of memory or time within that day that you cannot account for. Because if you can account for it and you can observe that time, chances are you were present. If you're present, then you're not dissociative.
So,
Okay.
so, in, so in
Go
other
ahead.
words,
Good.
in other words, Carlson, what you're saying that one of these personalities become dominant according to the situation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. If anyone that you notice uh maybe okay, and then for some reason it may be someone present, somebody step into the room, and all of a sudden this person change. This person whole mood and stuff change, and the person may even get violent. Depends on the history or depends on what that person trigger in them. And then the person leaves the air. The person that came into the room initially steps away. That person calm down, and then the person like, what just happened? I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, these things happen all the time because you wake up one morning and you feel very good and you have some projects to do and you get a phone call and it's a whole new day you're heading to
Yeah, some
based
so
on
like I
what
said,
the call was about.
yeah, I do believe each human being goes from different. We go from different states. We have multiple personalities. We just we just they're just associated to each other. They're connected still. Occasionally, you may forget what you've done for the last few hours because for some whatever the case might be, whatever is that may trigger that loss of memory is just your brain trying to protect you from something. So developing a different personality to deal with traumatic situation or difficult situation. Some people go into a work mode, and suddenly you're in a work mode. You just focus and don't care what anybody. You're just so focused. Everything is zoned out.
Yeah.
Correct. And when you get that done, then you can be yours. Obviously, then I can be myself again. Well, even in that experience, you are always yourself. You're just a different version of yourself.
Okay.
But some people, when they go into a different version of themselves, it literally disconnect from the primary person, from the primary personality. So that, like I say, that's basically how I would explain um, person with multiple personality disorder. Every person has multiple personalities. A person with a disorder, or that even that word disorder, that's a funny word. Anyhow, a person. I'm not going into that. Like I say, words. Remember, you heard me say words. I analyze words and what we mean by them. Anyhow, yeah, a person with multiple disorders uh, just lack the ability to connect all of these different parts of themselves. That's all it is.
Mm.
Let me ask a question. Did I manage to add, so based on what I said, did it paint a picture that you could understand?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Not only understand but relate to.
Correct. Good.
Mm.
Great. And that's always my focus. Whatever I say, if you don't understand, it means that I have to figure out how to explain it better. Um, it's all about, like I said, it's all about communication with me.
Yeah. So, we have just talk about this associative identity disorder. But I know that there are others like the borderline personality disorder,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you had really researched it or have gone through it, but I'd like to just talk about that a little bit if you can.
I I I think borderline. Let me give me a second. Let me. No, I'm gonna do a search, but I have a theory, but I just want to make sure what I'm going to say is when we use labels, sometimes it can sound more than it really is. Uh,
Yeah, because in researching it, I found out that it is really characterized by the person's mood, and behavior,
person's
from
mood,
that mood.
right?
Yeah, so
Okay,
there's some instability in the mood of the person, and it causes a
correct.
certain behavior, and it makes it difficult for them to function. So
Yeah.
but what I'm
It,
saying that a whole lot of us, may have experienced this kind of disorder at some time or the other.
yeah. Uh, Now I am here reading if anyone who anybody want to go and check online. I'll tell you what it says and listen to it and let me I tell you if it's something what they explain as well. Borderline personality disorder, BPD, also known as emotionally unstable personality disorder, is a personality disorder characterized by a long-term pattern of unstable interpersonal relationships, distorted sense of self, and strong emotional reactions. Strong emotional reactions can also be something we call traumatic, right? Interpersonal relationships, distorted sense of self, basically who you are. To carry on, those affected often engage in self-harm and other dangerous behaviors, often due to their difficulty with returning their emotional level to a healthy or normal baseline. So it's like some
Yes,
people do get frustrated with feeling the way they feel. When we come across people with self-harm, and I've come now that I've come across a few times, and funny enough, I do come across that with young people, and it is not only about attempting to hurt yourself, but is attempting to be in control. Some people just hurt themselves so they can feel something, so they can actually feel a physical pain in the body that they can recognize that is me. That is who I am. You imagine, have you ever had a feeling where you look at yourself and you're pinching yourself to see if you're sleeping or not?
Oh yeah.
Okay. When you pinch yourself and you can feel that pain, what is your perception of that page? That you're present, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is I am present. I am aware. I'm not sleeping. I'm present. Because when we can feel that, we know I am conscious of that. Some people self harm to bring themselves conscious, to bring their consciousness back to their awareness, so that they know that that it is still who they are. Um, I had an issue trying to understand and relate to that because once I could not explain or I didn't experience it myself, so I cannot understand uh, what it feels like to go through that. But I have a perception, I have an idea of creating that thought in my head to, to relate to it. Some people are not able to do that, or they struggle between the different personalities. Is not just who you are, but who you are combines of how you feel. So this borderline personality disorder, borderline is exactly is like having two fields with a fence in the middle, and you're not sure if you're this side or that side. So borderline is you're kind of in the middle, switching from one side to the other side. You get me so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So borderline personality is a person just switching from one personality to the next one, depending on what happened. So whereas we look at it as in, we would describe it as multiple personalities, as in people, this is just different states of behavior or moods. So one minute the person can be in a good mood, and then the person can switch moods, and you may not even understand. That person may not even understand why to switch moods.
Mm.
Yeah. But in researching it, I realized it has a whole lot to do with self-image, you know, or one view themselves.
Perception,
Yeah,
correct.
the perception. Yeah. So, but one of the facts that I found about, and I see it in a behavior for a whole lot of people sometimes, and most of women sort of practice this kind of behavior too, is that they do things to get, this amount of attention, or they
Mm.
do some subtle things to manipulate, you know, the situation or whatever situation it is. So,
It,
and
all of that behavior, yeah,
yeah, and it's attributed to this kind of borderline
yeah,
personality disorder. So,
yeah. All
because one
behavior.
of the facts that I also discovered is
Mm-hmm.
that 75% of people who have this condition are women.
Mm.
And I was
I
surprised.
I I am going to be very careful with my response at this point.
No, no, no. To tell, actually, this came from psychology today, I think.
No, I agree. I agree. Um, what I want to say is, and then my perception is only as there's me speaking from my perception. When you look at men and women, there is a difference in behavior and a difference in focus on how we see our roles, not just our roles in society, but how we see ourselves within society. Now, men, we when it comes to physical appearance, we like to be well groomed, well dressed. Women also, but women pay more of attention on their presentation, in my opinion, than men do. And because you find that women will pay more presentation on their appearance than men do, you find that the intense focus on how I look is more intense. And because our society as well, which like to women have to be a certain size, look a certain boob size, a certain makeup, hair, dress. Whether you're big, skinny, or what we find in man, you can just put on a nice shirt, a nice jeans, nice shoes, and that's it for us. We don't really go into as much makeup and as much um, as is advertised. So I find that the social structure or the environment, come back to my basics and speaking again, the environment in which we raise in and the influence that we come across also shape our influence and also shape our expectations. And I believe that there's so much pressure now before. remember, 100 years ago, we had no television. 50 years ago, uh, not really any kind of media. And as the years progress, we get more and more connected. There more pressure for people to look what we perceive as perfect. And with the pressure of these expectations, uh, when it comes to marketing on appearance, I find that they're more cosmetic for women. They're more dresses and styles for women. So obviously, women are more focused uh, and we are looking at perfection. We're looking at you see a person advertising weight loss program. It's always a skinny person advertising weight loss. It's not a fat person advertising weight loss. You're using a person with good skin advertising makeup on good skin. You're not seeing a person with blemishes advertising makeup on that skin. So you're showing people a perception of reality that may not be easy to obtain. And when people try to obtain these and cannot, that is where the frustration comes in. That is where the low self-esteem comes in. That's where the bad eating habits come in. That's where the moods, the swing in moods. There's so much different factors. There's so many different factors, but most of it is based in the environment. And that is why when you say that more women are experiencing these symptoms than men, is really because the pressure on women to look a certain way or behave a certain way, I think it's more um, advocated than it is for men.
Well, maybe
Do you
part of
follow
it
me?
maybe because women are the bigger consumers
Correct,
of
because that
product.
they're targeted to be more consumers.
Yeah.
You know, you think about it. If you go to market appearance of man, you just go to market haircuts, shirt, trousers, shoes. Women, hairstyle, eyelashes. You know, uh, not just hairstyle, hair. Period. Right, lipstick, skin toner, blusher, eyeliner. Dress, bra. Yeah, and it goes on. Shoes. Men we like shoes. Women got high heels and stilettos and flat heels and this. You go in any particular house and you count the amount of shoes a woman got compared to a man got. Very few men have more shoes than women.
Oh
But
yeah,
I'd be very concerned if a man have more shoes than a
shoes
woman.
and women. Yeah,
Right?
and then
So
you
that's what
move,
I'm saying.
and then you move
Yeah.
to what men don't have, which women have millions of is handbags.
Oh gosh,
Cause
that's a
handbags have
whole
to
different
match
conversation.
shoes.
You see, so because of our perception of society, because how we view life, how we the reality we create, the pressure of that really affects our mental state. Our mental health is really affected by the environment that we perceive to be part of.
Uh, yep.
Now,
And
also reading, yeah,
and another fact about this kind of personality disorder is that you know people have a chronic feeling of kind of rejection or abandonment.
yeah. When you say that word chronic, you understand the word chronic?
Well,
And these are two words we don't really talk about regularly, which I really think makes a big difference. Acute
yeah,
and chronic, short term, long term.
yeah,
Hmm.
Now, that I just said some people have a chronic or long term sense of abandonment, and when we hold on to a lot of these emotions for a long time, it manifests within themselves different ways. And yeah, it's possible that one of the ways it manifests is it not possible. It does happen. It affects our behavior. If you perceive yourself to be abandoned, you you a perception can be I'm not good enough. Therefore, that behavior you match that behavior that you associate with not being good enough. And the reason I can talk about this is because this is something I struggled with when I was younger as well. Not the feeling of not being good enough because I felt a sense of abandonment not being raised by my parents. But once I was aware that my thoughts and the way I perceive myself to be is what generate the behavior, I will myself asking myself, how do I change my behavior? How do I change my perception? Because only by asking the question, I actually start to find answers. But that meant I was aware of my behavior. People that dissociate may not even, like I said, not realizing that, and that's what generates. That's what keep generating that behavior. It's like being on a cycle and not able to stop that pedaling. Just keep pedaling, just keep pedaling, just keep pedaling, just keep going and just keep going, just keep going.
Yeah, you know, just just listening to you, something just hit me that
Uh-huh.
maybe this rejection and or abandonment may be the cause for this, wanting to be having this kind of attention.
Yeah, every
Because
behavior, there's a good intention behind every behavior. That is one of the what we call presuppositions of NLP. Whatever a person does, the intent is to gain something. So even bad behavior is an attempt to gain attention or to gain something. The intention is always a good self-serving. I know we don't always see it, but if you think about it, everything that someone does, it is for their benefit. It is to gain something. Even a person that forbid, I hope this is going to be let me give a trigger warning for anybody that has either tried committing suicide or know someone. Even the act of committing suicide is the attempt to control pain or control um, disharmony in your life. You with me?
yeah, I'm with you. I'm
Hmm?
listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right. So even that itself is a person decide, you know what, I had enough. This is it. The only way forward is for me to end it. That is still an attempt to solve a problem, end the pain, end the misery. It's not about hurt. It's not about you know. It's all about the intention is to stop pain from happening. So every behavior, the intention is to generate. It is a good. The intention is a good intention to solve a problem. May not be the right path to take as we deem it to be, but the intention is solve a problem.
Uh, Interesting idea, interesting
Oh
theory.
yeah. Hmm.
Because I would say when I see a person behave the way they do, my question is, what is this person? The reason for this person behavior? What is the problem they're trying to solve? So when you see some, for instance, I don't want to go too far off topic, but say borderline personality disorder. We were talking about person with multiple behavioral differences. When a person may get violent, that may be the attempt to be defensive in order to protect themselves. The intent is to protect myself. So therefore, this way of behavior is my way of self-preservation. When that person no longer perceive threat or perceive anything harmful to themselves, they may revert back to the original state, more calm, more relaxed. But there's a reason behind the behavior. So the
Yeah,
first thing I always say is, with me, I practice this, and I'm not going to say I get it 100%, but I practice this. Is one, not to take that person's behavior personal to me. I actually got to say it is not about me. It is about this person reacting to something they perceive in their reality, in their immediate presence. I can only assume, having to deal with a person with borderline personality disorder, if you're not aware what the person is going through or what the person is behaving the way they are, it is very easy to take it personal to yourself. Therefore, you just react rather than analyze, rather than understand, rather than support. Like I said, this is a discussion we can talk about, but in practice, there is really not a handbook for it yet that I could tell anyone. It's just a matter of one aware, being aware of what this person might be struggling with. But the first thing you got to do is get yourself relaxed and calm before you even think of how can I talk to this person or deal with this person. Sometimes you might even need to take yourself away from the person if you find that you cannot manage it. If I had to work with someone that was switching personalities, I didn't know what was causing the trigger, so I don't know how to keep the person in the particular state I want. I would then have to go in and find somebody to consult with because I would not even attempt to try to integrate this person's behavior or try to connect with this person unless I have someone with experience. So anyone that listens to this program and may say, well, you know, what you're discussing or sound like that may sound like some person I know personally. Um, it will be helpful or it can be helpful for anyone that recognize these certain traits in any family member or any friend or any work colleague to spend more time reading up and realize one, it is really not about me and not to take that person's behavior personal as well. Sometimes it can be helpful just understand that, take yourself aware. Even if you come back the person when you see the person more relaxed and calm and say, I realize that sometimes you need to change mood. When you're relaxed and calm, you want to talk to me. Feel, you know, it, it, it really depends if it's a family member or friend, but the approach will be different depending on what the personal relationship is to you. So
Can this
I know one,
personality thing be cross person?
when you say cross
Can it
person,
be adopted? Let's say a couple that are very close.
yeah.
Can the personality move from one person to the next,
And
to their partner?
the part, all right, let me see. I think I understand what you mean. The personality cannot move from one person to the next. The assumption is if it moved from one person to the next, it means that the person that it moves to gain a personality and the person that it was with just lost one. It
Yeah.
can't move cross. No, it can't move cross. What can happen is that the second person can actually mimic or unconsciously adopt the same pattern of behavior.
Hmm.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Have anybody come and start to shout at you and you just start to shout back at them?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. When the person initially shout at you, in any part of your mind, did you say, you know what, I'm going to shout at this person now as well? Or did you just start to shout back at them?
Yeah, you just automatic.
Correct. It's a reflex action. So you mirror the behavior you saw, right?
Okay.
And if you do that long enough, you don't even have to think about doing it. You unconsciously start to do it. So patterns of behavior can be learned consciously or unconsciously, right? So then you end up with two people with the same pattern of behavior. It doesn't mean that it gone from one to the other. It remains with that person. You just mimic that and learn it.
Mm.
So if you're when we are the age, like I said, children from the age of 2 to 7 will learn, and that is how we learn. We will pick up the pattern of behavior from our surroundings. That's how we understand how to integrate with our community. By becoming part of the community, and the only things we have to pay attention to is behavior. That's
Hmm.
why if you take, let me use my life as an example. I have a daughter that born in Barbados and she can dance to soca music. I have a son that born in England. He doesn't have no rhythm. They're both my children, right?
Wow.
The music, one come up wrong with the music, one didn't. One has rhythm to that music, one doesn't.
Hmm.
So that's an environment shape there will shape who they become.
Okay.
Just like environment, depending on where you go, something that may be physical or emotional trauma will shape the way that our brain perceive reality, and therefore we may end up having multiple personalities in order to survive our perception of the world.
Hmm.
Yeah, but there are two characteristics to in this borderline personality disorder that
Yep,
is mentioned regularly too. It's about boredom. One is boredom actually, and one is some what you call that says what I'm just checking it right here.
yeah,
Boredom and emptiness.
Hmm.
yeah. Lack of
You don't
self
want to
worth.
go there.
If you believe that there's nothing that you're doing that is of worthwhile, you believe that you yourself is not of worthwhile, and that in itself, based on what you believe, will cause we said disharmony. If you're put this way, if you're living to your purpose or you're living to a purpose that you assign yourself to, you believe as though you're moving through time, you're moving through life itself. If you're not doing anything um, to your purpose, you believe that you're at standstill, you're not moving. So we get bored. Think about it. Children get bored when they're not doing anything, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even if you're doing something but you're not interested in doing it, you become bored. Well, if you're not doing something you perceive to be productive with your life, then you're not doing anything of worth. That's where you become bored. And if you see your life as not having worth, then who are you? Why are you even living?
Yeah.
And that's why when you have that's why you said is from this unhappiness to where you are at something, then back to this, because that becomes a pattern of thought. Because as a pattern of thought is an unconscious, it becomes an unconscious pattern of behavior.
Yeah, you have to have some purpose.
Everyone has a purpose if everyone decides to have a purpose.
Hmm.
Purpose is what we think we are born to purpose. No, some people, for instance, let's use the queen. Person now became king. He was born into purpose,
Oh yeah.
right? A person that is as electrician, that person create their purpose. A
Hmm.
person that um say for lack of thing, a person that's homeless may think they're homeless because they don't have a purpose, but then there are people that are homeless that do work, that do something. They just because of circumstances that just don't have a home.
Yeah.
So it's not the circumstances that dictate who you are. It's your perception of yourself that will dictate who you become.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting topic.
Yeah. So, like I said, understanding what understanding behavior, understanding what generates it, what may have caused it. Um, that's the first thing to do to understand what is this person experiencing this mental illness or this dissociative behavior. And if you, in some cases, if you can understand the person's history and why they become the way or why they experience that, healing them might also can help. I know, like I said, psychotherapy is not the word. CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. I also talk about NLP because, from me being biased, I believe a lot of these therapies are more or less they're very similar in structure. Just that people will do it different, add a different name to it, become something new, but they're very similar in structure. Um, yeah, and obviously we're trying to in any change of behavior, any kind of healing, our pattern of behavior is ingrained in us in our unconsciousness. In other words, when you speak to a person saying, "Oh, you should be better, you should behave this way, you should be," that is not unconscious. That's a conscious thought. Change doesn't happen consciously. The decision to make change happen consciously. The behavior or pattern is unconscious. Therefore, healing is also done in your unconsciousness. That's why I believe that hypnotherapy allows a person to be contacted or be conversed with by connecting to the unconsciousness. Because that's where that's where the programs are created, saved, and stored, and where they run from. So in order to change the program, you have to access the program. As programs are accessed through your unconsciousness, not necessarily your consciousness. You can make a conscious decision to do something, but if you keep making the conscious decision to do something over a period of time, then it becomes an unconscious behavior. The same way if you make a conscious decision to make change, you got to be making that conscious change over a period of time before it becomes an unconscious change. You don't just tell yourself, I'm going to get it tomorrow and I'm going to be different. No, you got to tell yourself today, you got to tell yourself tomorrow, you got to tell yourself the day after. You got to tell yourself so in as long as it takes for it to become that.
Well, a quick question though, Carlston.
Yes.
What would you say to people who are like in a urban, settings, who don't have the kind of resources to, go, get therapy and all of that? How do you tell people who are in these settings with, this limited resources, how do you tell them now how to deal with that person, people with these kind of disorders? What would you recommend then?
Let me ask you a question. If you found out that you had cancer and you had to raise $5,000 to get an operation to save your life, do you think you can find $5,000?
No, but you try to do something to organize a GoFundMe, or somebody with maybe some close friend will try and get a
Yeah,
GoFundMe thing,
right.
because what I see where you're getting at, but
Go,
that
go,
is a
let,
physical ailment or physical thing that someone can see. We can see these
right.
mental, them
Listen,
disabled and mentally
let,
disorders.
let me explain to you. It doesn't make a difference if it's physical or mental. I just asked you a question. Your answer started with no, but you will go to start a GoFundMe, right? You just did two things. Answer no, as a, you don't have it, but you will seek it out. Correct? You come up
All
with
right.
ideas how you would raise it. Because why? Because we judge things on importance. If I told you to find 5,000 to buy a new car, that is not on a level of importance as it is finding 5,000 that to save your life. It's not the matter of how much it costs, it's the matter of the value you place on it. The reason I asked you that is to prove this point. If you place a value, if you see yourself as, you know what, I really need help, and you place a value, high value enough on yourself, you will find a way. So a person in an area that may not be able to afford or get resources will find a way to get resources. It's not get resources, get resourceful. Whether it matter be having a family meeting, listen, I need to have a raise, to have a GoFundMe account, to even get on a bus and go someplace different, change the environment that you're in. It is one thing I will always stress, and I do it with myself as well. For change to take part in your life, you have to take responsibility of your life. We can find solutions or we can find excuses. You can't really do both together. So I do not know what a person will need to do in order to find resources. But one thing I know, you have to become resourceful. You got to figure out what can I do. Because if you recognize that actually I know what's wrong with me and I know there's help out there, I need to find help. Then once you start with the idea that I want help and I want to find help, I believe, and this is a belief, this is faith now, this is knowing without even knowing how we can get there, that just making the decision and you search for answers, you'll find something. I hope I answered that question to your
Yes, yeah,
satisfaction.
yes, yeah, you're right, you're correct.
Yeah.
It's just that in these urban settings, because I'm just like looking back, at my childhood days, growing up, that we see people with these conditions. I mean, you can actually know, as a child, but you hardly see anyone try to help them back in those days.
I'll tell you why. I have mentioned this morning, awareness. We did not know. I can tell you, I come up in an environment where people with schizophrenic behavior, people with dissociative behavior, people with um, depression, and all of these things I've seen people behave, and yet all we know is we deem them to be a mad person or that person mad. We did not know any different. We did not understand as much as we do now. We had no connection to the internet. In fact, there was no. The only internet you had was, your next door neighbor shouting over the rooftop to the next door neighbor who would shout to her next door neighbor. That's the only internet we had, right? Um, so we did not have the knowledge we do now that we have now, and that is the big difference. Back then, we had no knowledge. Every person that behaved what we consider not normal, abnormal, different was deemed and labeled as a mad person. And therefore, we didn't know what we could do or how to help that person because we just did not know. That is
Yeah.
really what it was. The question is, when you do know, do we do anything different?
Yeah, that's it. That is it.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, it's pretty
But
interesting.
uh, thank you for even the topic of discussion because, like I said from the beginning, this is not my area. But all I can do is when I'm speaking, if you want, is to use what I research and then my own interpretation based on what I already know about certain factors to try to get a message over. So I really hope I did this conversation justice.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
it was very clear, very very clear, and it opened a lot of things up because a normal person don't look at these things or even see these things in the first place. Something is not right, but that's it, and you leave it, and when there's a lot happening. So I think it opened up the whole idea that something need to be done in all these situations.
I think one of the things is like for instance, we here speaking. Uh, I don't. There can never be enough programs to talk about mental health because what that does is the first step of awareness. I always talk about
Yeah,
this with when I'm teaching or working with groups. Awareness is the first step. You do not know what you do not know,
that's it. Yes,
right? And once you do know, now you have a chance to either learn a bit more and then make changes. So if I'm working with someone, I would explain to them maybe what the behavior is weird by asking questions, getting some feedback, getting some history from them. So okay, so are you aware that your behavior can stem from this? Because I have a topic about is events, meaning, emotions, and behavior. In other words, something happened to you, you put a meaning to it, it creates an emotion within you which generates a behavior. If you are not even aware that the events, what the meaning is that you put on the event, by changing the meaning, you can change the emotion it generates, therefore affecting the behavior. For instance, let me talk what we talked earlier, abandonment. Abandonment, um, actually, let me use myself as an example. I can talk about me. I talked earlier about my feeling of abandonment as a child. When I was young, my mom took me from 7 months and took me to my grandmother to raise. Now, the meaning as I got older, the meaning to me was my mom didn't like me. The emotion was I felt hurt, rejected, and unloved. And the behavior was we didn't really speak well. The aggressive behavior, as a teenager growing up, how you boys is be very rebellious, right? As I got older now, I examined the the event has not changed. I was still taken to my grandma. My mom was young at the time, wasn't working, and was unable to support me well. So therefore, she asked my grandma to look after me. When I realized, you know what, it wasn't a ban, it was that she was doing what she thought was good for me, or what was the best choice for me. It means that my emotions changed. I didn't feel rejected or hurt anymore, right? And then it
hmm
means that I then bridged and my behavior towards my mom changed and improved. And all I simply did is change one element of that equation, the meaning I assigned to the event. So you grow your whole life thinking somebody did me something, it means that they hit me. It means this, it means the next and third, which make you feel angry, which is the emotion, and the behavior. You always want to fight with this person, you avoid the person, you don't speak to the person. That's the behavior. It happens in families all the time. But if you examine the event and say, if I change the meaning, what else could it have meant? And most of the times we don't communicate, so we basically miscommunication and putting the wrong meaning to something that happened, which generates the wrong emotion, which generates the wrong behavior. And just by working on what you think it means and changing that means to something that is more acceptable or a different point of view, you can change your whole result by just changing that one part.
Yeah. And with that, that's a very good note to close on. Courtney?
Yes. Okay. So thank you very much, Carlston, for taking your time out to come and talk to us, about this subject. I hope our listeners and viewers have learned from this, and that we can take appropriate action whenever these situations arise, or we are aware of them. So thank you very much for being with us on the Real Stuff podcast.
My
Back to you,
pleasure,
Fred.
my pleasure,
Thank
guys.
you very much. Thank you very much.
Mm.
So until next time, signing off of the Real Stuff podcast. Have a good day.
You lead us so full. You belong far away away. Ajuguala lebo buseru. Lida mua, lida sungfula. Lida mua, lida sungfula.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.
All you gotta do is just speak. One word is enough, and I'm no longer so rough. I forget what I was trying to say. I no longer do what I was gonna do, but you're no good for me. That's why me know I said me if it could flee. Me have to take away me say. Me have to take away me say. Me have to hide like a thief in the night. Me have to get out of sight. Me have to take away myself. I have to take away myself. I have to utilize I will.